Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming and welcome back to Player Cam. Today we're going to be taking a look at a game from Idra's perspective. Here at Player Cam, well, that's exactly what we do. We look at games through the perspective of the players that you love, and yeah, we just see the game through their eyes. Now in this particular game, our opponent here is Select, and we're going to see that through scouting, but obviously going into the game, Idra knew who his opponent was. So basically, yeah, we're going to be staying with his camera. We're going to be following Idra precisely how he views things, and I think this can be really beneficial to a lot of players just to see how other players bounce around the map, how they respond to different scenarios. The fact that they're much more aware than your average player of the scenarios just because of their ability to hop around the map and use their hotkeys and everything like that. Speaking of which, hotkeys, we can see here 4 hatchery. That's a very popular hotkey. A lot of players like to put their hatchery on 4, and then typically what we'll see is a queen on 5, and then the main army on 1 through 3. Any additional buildings such as evolution chambers, any upgradable buildings, you'll sometimes see on later hotkeys as well. But enough of that, let's just hop into this game, see specifically how Idra plays through it. Overlord scouting, he's moving his Overlord straight into his opponent's base right now. Now the only real worry here, one thing you have to realize with Overlord scouting is that your biggest threat, honestly, early game is the early game Marines. So playing against a Terran opponent, you really have to worry about early Marines. As long as you get enough scouting to see the barracks coming and you get your Overlord out of there and safe before the barracks is finished, then you're pretty much all set. Moving his scout down there to his natural, he did see this bunker going down. The point of that bunker placement is to prevent any expansions from going down. That is exactly why Select's doing it. So at this point, Idra is going to have to respond by trying to kill it or doing something of the sort, and we'll see precisely what he intends on doing. Coming down with the extractor and pool as well. Obviously, because of this placement here, he is forced to delay any expansion that he would go for, saturating that extractor as soon as it comes up. You can see at this point, trying to get that Overlord out of there. I believe that barracks is just about finished for Select in his main base, so he's going to have to get that Overlord out of there pretty soon, as soon as possible, really. And I'm going to assume as soon as that starport comes up, as soon as that spawning pool comes up, my god, that was way off. As soon as that spawning pool comes up, he's going to get some Zerglings out. And he should be just about, he's getting there. That drone's picking away at that bunker there, trying to get away from it, trying to get rid of it as soon as possible. Now, so spawning pool did come up, coming out with those 4 Zerglings as well as that queen pretty much immediately. That's what you expect to see. Probably going to see metabolic boost coming right now. There it is, and canceled. So no, he decides not to go for metabolic boost. Let's see precisely what his decision is at this point. He's either going to be choosing to pull up this Vespian or to get a Baneling's Nest or something. We'll see exactly what he intends on doing. A little surprised that he didn't go for that metabolic boost. That's what you're going to see most players do. In fact, completely, okay, there we go. Metabolic boost now coming down. He wanted to get 50 more Vespian, pulled his drones off of the extractor, then getting the metabolic boost. As we can see, his hatchery is coming up right now at his natural expansion, and he's going to be moving out with some Zerglings to his opponent's base, trying to see exactly what Select has there. Going to try to kill off that SCV first, though. Second queen coming up right now. Purpose being twofold, one of which you want a queen for that expansion, obviously. Second reason is it's going to help with any Banshee defense if that's need be, basically. If Select here goes for some Banshees early game, having a second queen is going to help a lot. Moving to the front wall here, basically testing the waters. Also, the point is scouting. We want to see what buildings he has. So seeing that there's a factory in Starport, we know that there's no barracks heavy build coming. That also tells us that super early pressure isn't very likely. If we saw 2 or 3 barracks, then we could probably expect early Marine bunker pressure or something like that. That's something you see a lot of. But no, we did in fact see a factory. We also saw a tech lab going down on that first barrack. So we know that no super early pressure is coming. Having that Overlord spotted behind the base, that's a good idea. It's going to tell you when he expands. You just need to be close enough to see the minerals. Basically what you can do is you can click on the minerals, and if you see that they're low, or if you see that they're lower than their full capacity, then you're going to know that he's already expanded there. And trying to be at that max distance is going to keep your Overlord pretty safe until he gets any Vikings or anything like that out. Scouting around now with the Zerglings, upgrading to a layer at this point as well, so he's going to be going for some higher tech. Also got that 1 extractor up. A couple more extractors coming up as well, so obviously going to be going for some sort of Vespian heavy build. We'll see precisely what that is. The most likely transition is into Mutalist. Spieling Muta is very, very popular as Zerg against Terran because it is very, very effective. Any effective builds are of course going to be popular builds because they work well. Moving that Spinecrawler down, that's going to help defend both his main and his natural a little bit better by placing it there. We can also see that he's starting to spread the creep there. He has that one creep tumor that spread that creep down a little bit, and hopefully we see a continuation of that, and he'll continue to spread creep all the way around. Trying to catch up to this Hellion at this point. What you want to do is run in front of it and get a surround. Let's see if he can do it. Really close, really close. You get, oh man, so close to getting that. But yeah, that's basically what you would want to try to do. Try to get in front of it and then surround, rather than just trying to chase it the whole time, because you'll actually never catch up to it if you're just trying to follow it. You want to use that extra speed that you have over the Hellion, try to run in front of him, and then surround him. We are seeing that Spire go down, so it looks like that transition to Mutalisk is in fact coming, and we can see at this point no other units right now, saving himself from the possibility of Cloaked Banshees by getting that Overseer. Also, he can be using that to drop a Changeling, and it looks like that is exactly what we're going to be seeing. Now I'm going to go back to what I talked about earlier with hotkeys. We can see, like I talked about, Hatchery is at 4, and then he's got the Queens at 5 and 6, and his main army is going to be here at 1 through 3. So with that Changeling in his base, he did see a little bit. He saw those drop ships, so he's going to have to be wary of any drops now. In fact, those drop ships are following his Overseer. Let's see, yep, moving up his Queens to defend, also moving up that Spine Crawler. All of his Queens coming up to defend against this. He's got Mutas on the way, as well as some more Zerglings. It should be okay against this push. We'll see how this goes. Waiting until they get in the range of the Queens and the Spine Crawler to engage with his Zerglings. Also moving up drones as well to help with this fight. That's something you're going to want to do if you're clearly outnumbered. In this particular spot, Idra saw that he was outnumbered. There were more Marines and Hellions than he had Zerglings, and so he brought up his drones as well to help with that. Now, having these Mutalisks obviously going to help a lot. You're going to try to keep them alive, though. Make sure you don't lose them. If you had too many Marines engaging with those Mutalisks, could be a little dangerous. Now that attack is cleared, though, going to be getting some more Mutalisks out, and a counterattack should be in order. That's usually what you want to do. You know, if you get attacked, don't just clam up and sit in your base. Push out after they attack. You know, if you fended it off, that means you killed a majority of what they had for an army. At least you killed everything that they attacked with, obviously. So you want to poke at their base. You want to see what they have. Realize that they're going to have to rebuild back up. Even if they've been constantly producing during an attack, they're still going to be pretty low. So push out, see what you can do for damage. What we're seeing is a real advantage of Mutalisk here. Another drop going down in the back of his base, though. It doesn't have quite enough to defend. Coming out with some Mutalisks and no Zerglings right now, so we're going to be engaging with those drones. Alright, he pulled back some of the Mutalisks that he had in Select's base, so that's going to help fend this off. He's got to be really careful. Doesn't want to lose that Spire, because that could be pretty devastating. And where is he going with this? Okay, grabbing some more Mutas, coming back. He's going to engage when he has basically the whole bulk of his army there. And really close to losing that Spire. Doesn't want that to happen, and the rest of the Mutas come up to clean up those Marines, so he is safe at this point. He's going to have to try to fend off this attack as well. This Marine drop is going to be really frustrating for Idra. I can't imagine. He mustn't be too thrilled. Queen just barely died there. He could almost got away with its life intact, but not quite. Hellion going around to try to pick off some more units, but Idra just mopping up with these Mutalisks here. So here again, this is that same point. We fended off that attack, so Idra is going to be moving back in, and this is a proper decision. This is exactly what you want to do. Realize too that Mutalisks, they're so fast, they're so mobile. They are fragile, of course, to Marines and Thors, but what you want to do is you just want to poke and prod. You want to pick at his base. You want to take off buildings. You know, like try to knock off supply depots, like we're seeing him try to do here. Try to run into the mineral patch, kill a few workers, and if you can do that without taking too many losses, you can slowly whittle away at your opponent's army. A good idea also would be to check the expansion, but we can see here on the mini-map, I'll put my mouse cursor over there, we can see on the mini-map that in spotting with this Overlord, there is no buildings right here, so we do know he hasn't expanded yet. When this Overlord spots an expansion, then we're going to be able to run down there with the Mutalisk as well, and that's exactly what Idra is likely to do. And here we go, picking and prodding, picking and prodding. Something else to realize about this type of play style, about using Speedlings and Mutalisks to constantly swoop into your opponent's base, do some damage, and then run away when the threats come, is it does a really good job most times in most games of containing your opponent. It really forces them to try to stay in their base, because they know as soon as they leave, you're going to swoop right back in with those Mutalisks, and they're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. So it forces them to either get some static defenses, get some missile turrets, get a bunch of Thors in the back of their base before they can even decide that they want to push out. Now, we're seeing another drop go on over here, some Marines and Hellions. Do we have enough in the base? Idra is going to be forced to move back his units, but look at that. The speed and mobility of the Mutalisk, again, put into work. Not only is it good, not only is the speed and mobility of the Mutalisk good for harassing, but it's also good for defending, clearly. It was quite easy, especially on this map, Scrap Station, with the air distance being so short between the two bases. It was quite easy for Idra to pull his forces back to defend against that drop, and this puts Select really in a tough position, because he has to keep guys in his base to defend against this constant harass that we're seeing Idra doing, but he has to do damage as well. He can't just sit in his base all day. If he sits in his base all day, if he doesn't expand, and if he doesn't harass Idra, then he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, knowing this, Idra is going to keep this harassment constant. You can see barely back at his base. This is something I talk to a lot of my students about as well, that once you get comfortable using those hotkeys and being able to produce units and upgrading away from your base, there's really little reason to ever go back to your base. The only time you ever really need to go back to your base when you're using hotkeys is to build additional buildings. In fact, we just saw there that Idra went back to his base to drop some larvae on those hatcheries. That's actually unnecessary. You can use your hotkeys and click on the minimap by clicking on the hatcheries on the minimap and using your hotkey. So you hit your hotkey for your queen, so for example 5 here, and then you would hit V for spawn larva, and you just click on the spot where the hatchery is on the minimap, and you can spawn larva away from your base. Now, obviously, you know, Idra knows this. He isn't. It's not like he isn't privy to this information, but he just chose to come back. He's choosing to come back to his base to do that. But I'm just letting you know personally, that's not necessary. You can continue harassment, and you can be aggressive, and you don't have to go back to your base to spawn larvae. In fact, you only ever, like I said earlier, you only ever have to go back to your base to build new buildings. As long as you use those hotkeys, you can constantly make units and make workers while you're away from your base. Being able to do that allows you to harass as much as we're seeing Idra doing here. A lot of players try to do this type of harassment, but they forget about their macro, they forget about their main base, and they forget about making units. And then once this harassment's done, they go back to their base and they have nothing, they haven't made any workers, and they don't have any units as well. So use those hotkeys and you're able to do things just like Idra is doing here. Grabbing up some more of his units that he's been making away from his base. He also expanded here, and he's just going to keep up this harassment. That's basically what we're going to see. And you know, some players may wonder, what's the Terran player doing? Well, you know, he's doing what he can. Basically, it's tough, like I mentioned earlier. It's really immobilizing being attacked constantly by Mutalisks, and you can see Idra hasn't lost a lot of Mutalisks because what he's doing is he runs into the base, he picks off a unit or two, picks off a building or two, and then runs away as soon as those Marines catch up. He doesn't allow him the opportunity to kill off his Mutalisks, and that is the point, that is what you want to do, and that is how this playstyle as Zerg can be really effective. Moving up with some Banelings, trying to do some damage there, but the siege tanks unfortunately did take those out, so Idra's going to have to retreat. He wants to avoid, of course, those Marines, even though he has that huge mass of Mutalisks. Marines with Stim Pack plus Combat Shield and any upgrades whatsoever will just tear through any Mutalisks that you have. Continuing that creep spread there, really good. Definitely want to see that. Also, like I mentioned earlier, we can see that expansion down at the high yield expansion at the bottom of this map here. Really good. And look at this. Select was forced to move his units back in between the bases to defend his expansion, and as soon as he did that, Idra runs right in with those Mutalisks and starts picking off siege tanks and picking off buildings. That is perfect. That is exactly what you want to do. Going back to his base to get some upgrades and getting some Banelings here as well. And look at Idra's production tab here, just constantly making stuff. Unfortunately, Select's not in quite the same position. With all this harassment, he's been in a really tough bind here. He's been in a really tough situation, a really tough spot. And that's what you want to do. And so Idra's showing us precisely how you can play this style of Zerg with Spielings and Mutalisks and how to be effective. Now, if you want to play with Spielings and Mutalisks and you don't do this type of harassment, it's going to be very hard for you to be successful, mainly because, like I mentioned, these units are so fragile. Spielings and Mutalisks are very fragile units against, Mutalisks are fragile against those Thors and Marines, and Spielings are fragile against Hellions and Siege Tanks and stuff like that. So, head-on battles, like just brute force running straight into someone's face, basically, as Zerg, using this unit composition, isn't really an option. You don't really have that option when you're going Spieling Muta. But if you can harass like this, then you can be very, very successful. We're also going to be seeing some upgrades here. Looks like he just got that Infestation Pit. Also going to be getting another expansion there. So we see another expansion coming down for Idra, and he's just taking map control, spreading his creep, keeping up this constant harassment, and he's waiting for the perfect opportunity, basically. He's waiting for the point where Select is really weak and Select is in a bad position, and just constantly whittling away at his army is going to provide him that opportunity, essentially. So there are those Marines, so we're going to want to pull back those Mutalisks right away, and that's what Idra does. Going to try to pick off that turret, and the reason he's getting rid of these turrets is so that he has the opportunity at some point in the future, not necessarily right now, but at some point in the future, it's going to provide him the opportunity to run in with those Mutalisks and pick off a bunch of workers, maybe while he's distracting Select at the front of his base with the rest of his units. Also going to be trying to take down these destructible debris. This is going to allow him to run some Speedlings and Banelings into that particular avenue over there. The Thor's coming down, so going to want to retreat. Like I said, we don't want those head-on battles, those brute force battles. We want to pick and prod and whittle him down and then attack him when we're at a huge advantage. And that's exactly what Idra's doing here, building up his forces, and we should see some big push coming in the near future. You can see all of these Speedlings and all of these Banelings, and he's rallying them right there to the main force of Select and moving straight in. Those Banelings and Speedlings doing a good job of cleaning up those ground forces. The Mutalisks pretty much trying to take care of those siege tanks as well, also magic boxing those Thors there. And that's pretty much going to be it. Select goes ahead and calls good game. So yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this. This was another example of player cam, and we looked at Idra vision today, basically. So this has been Force from Force Strategy Gaming. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, then please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. Roaches are against Speedlings early game. Just look at all the damage they do. This is actually a very dangerous spot, but look at this, using the statue to prevent a full surround. You can see those roaches are specifically held and hugged tight to the statue, and it's stopping those Zerglings from getting surround.